everybody again. Thank you for joining our webinar. We're gonna start now. Thank you a lot for joining the webinar. So my name is Ahmed Jabaji. I am the Solutions Director at Gulf Commercial Group. We are a very well-known local company that provide multiple solutions. So I will go over very quick introduction about the company, a couple of slides, then my colleague Rami will take you in the journey of the webinar agenda and discuss or present to you what would be our topic today about the digital worker and how this will impact your business processes and how really going to help you in the transformation journey that you are going to apply for your business. So in very quick introduction for people to know, Gulf Commercial Group is a company part of Hubashi Group. We are part of the technology cluster where the group has already many companies in different industry or different verticals. We already have in real estate McKean, energy and utilities, we have E&I and GCG Energy and multiple companies. So we already have multiple companies in the investment, technology, energy, healthcare, chemicals, or oil and gas, and retail as well. So the good thing about Gulf Commercial Group that we have started, I think, more than 38 years in UAE. So we already having a very strong roots across the country. We are part of Hubashi Group. Our aim always to provide services and solutions that make business easy and streamline our client modern enterprise management needs. Currently, we are having more than 200 qualified staff as Gulf Commercial Group, and we're already serving more than 2,000 clients in multiple services. The good thing also, we always depend on ourselves, so we have a minimum outsourcing. We have our in-house team as well. We have zero failure in project delivery. We are one of the top rated in ICV, which is in-country value program for UAE government, and we always partner with a global high grade or high ranking brands or platform or technology providers or even vendors in order to provide their technologies to our clients. So in very nutshell, GCG provide multiple solutions in multiple areas. We are in the enterprise solution focusing on the automation mainly and the data management, enterprise information management, as well as the business services. So other than RPA and workflow and process automation, we do provide ECM, asset management, analytics, and document scanning and capture. And we also do PPO for our clients. We provide digital consultancy and custom software developments. Other divisions, which we are very well known in it, is the print services, where we provide managed print services to our clients, and we have a huge business in that area, as well as the building automations and multiple solutions under low current systems, or we call it audio visual systems. I'm not going to repeat myself, so we provide multiple services around those 7 areas. So rather, whether it's a custom software development or low code or no code requirement, we are helping our customers. We already partner with Power Platform or Power Apps, and we do multiple projects in that area. In the digital transformation, we take the customer into the complete transformation journey, whether it's a new, whether it's revamp, whether it's a technology gap assessment. We already partnering with top tier big 4 consulting firms that work with the clients in order to build a complete engagement plan. Analytics also, we already provide services for SaaS and Power BI in the workflow and process automation. As you will see in today's presentation, we already partner with 4 RPA provider: Microsoft, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism. And when it comes to other than RPA in the PPM, we are already partnering with Nintex. In the asset management, we do provide two parts: the software, where we partner with Transtech to provide a physical tracking application to track your physical asset, and we provide the physical services of asset tagging or asset audit. ECM, we already partnering with two companies, M-Files and Cell Group, which they are one of the top 5 on the Gartner quadrant. And in the document scanning and capture, we provide multiple services. One of them is digital signature. We are already partner of DocuSign, and UEPass, the digital signature of the government. And then we provide the mobile capture needs with Microplink. We provide the scanning with Kofax and Gscan. And we provide very advanced scanning or capture software like ABI. That's only on the software part. On the services part, we do provide document scanning and conversion services, where we convert your backlog or your ongoing documents when it comes to day-to-day operations. This is just a sample of our clients. We have a diverse client, between government to private, between to enterprise company to small companies, and this is just a sample in the area of the automations, or in the area of enterprise information management within GCG. And this is a sample of our partners that we are already working with them. Okay, now I will leave the floor to my colleague Rami, who is going to jump on the subject of the webinar. So Rami will be presenting from his side. And Rami, I think I make you as presenter. Yes.
Thank you, Ahmed. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful morning. I will jump straight to the topic that we are presenting in our webinar today, which is robotic process automation, or employing your digital workforce. Generally speaking, let's go back a few steps where initially in all our organizations, we had manual tasks, and
Sorry,
repetitive.
Rami, your screen, I don't know if it's only from my side, but I think your screen is just presenting white.
Yeah, it's not visible.
Okay, let me
So
try
just
again.
Yes,
now it's working. Now it's
Okay.
working.
Okay, so to continue the discussion, we all in our organizations in different types and sectors of business, we all have manual processes, repetitive processes, time-consuming processes that are happening on daily basis in different areas of our business, in different supporting functions, in finance, in our operations, in our HR, and initially all these processes were counting on human interaction. It was counting on paperwork initially, and this has arisen the need for digital transformation, and this is why all the organizations for few years back have started to adopt digital transformation, how these organizations have transformed their business and their processes into a digital ecosystem. So using applications, instead of like recording our customers in papers, then recording them on Excel sheets, and finally we have CRMs right now for all our financial information. We were using paperwork as well. We were using spreadsheets, Excel sheets, and finally we have arrived to using ERPs, and the same applies to all the applications. However, even after going further or far enough in the digital transformation journey of every organization, there's still a gap. So there's still manual things that are happening. Our employees or our human workforce are still processing some requests or some data from finance or some data from HR. They are processing them on these systems, on the ERPs and on the CRMs and or on all the internal and different applications that we are using across our organization. And these processes are time consuming and are very repetitive. For example, let's say invoice processing or accounts payable, let's take it for as an example. It's a very time consuming and hectic process that I need as a finance employee or a accounting employee, that I need to match the POs with the invoices that I am receiving from my suppliers. I need to validate all the data. I need to validate the numbers. I need to make sure that everything is correct. And after this, I will need to post this invoice on my ERP and fill in all the data field by field on the ERP, and finally sending it for approval, getting the approval. So you can see that just a simple process, although very critical to our business, it's very time consuming, and at the end of the day, it's not providing as a process itself that much value of the work from the finance employee, because obviously a finance person would be very much qualified to do more analysis, to do more cognitive stuff that we can do as humans. So I'm almost wasting half of my time or lots of my time in doing something very manual, just entering data on the ERP, looking at the invoice, looking at the PO, and validating them together. So these things can be automated. These things can save our organization and our department and me as an employee lots of time. So this is why robotic process automation as a technology started to arise few years back, and many organizations are starting to adopt it. And in the meantime, in the past couple of years, almost according to Gartner reports, Forrester waves, and all these Gartner quadrants, Forrester waves, and all these things, people or organizations across the globe have started to adopt robotic process automation. So what is robotic automation exactly? Robotic process automation is a technology that includes software robots that are installed either on our machines or on our data centers, and are able to do all the repetitive and the manual tasks that we have just explained. The software robots are mimicking human actions. So if my job or my tasks or my daily activities as an employee is just moving data between one Excel sheet and another, or between one system or another, applying for applications on an external or an internal system, software robots are doing exactly the same thing, and obviously in a much faster and more accurate way. So the main thing here is that they are not physical robots, they are software robots that are mimicking the human activities on all the systems that any employee that can be using. Of course, there are criteria and qualifications for the process that can be done by such robots, and I will explain it in a second, but this is the general idea, that they are software robots that can, or we can call them digital workforce or virtual workforce, that sit either on the data center with headless machines, or sit on our own desktop or laptop and helping us on our daily activities. So what can these software robots do? They can log into applications, they can move files and folders, they can read and write to databases, they can scrape data or fetch data from either a web portal or a desktop application, either an internal application or an external application. So they basically can do anything that a human can do on a user interface on an application. Let's say the ERP or the CRM or our core application in the organization, our risk management system, our project management system, any type of application, whether web, desktop, or even legacy applications. For example, in banking, there are some banks that are still using legacy applications, and they need to do some processes on these applications or some activities on these applications. And of course, we all know how the legacy applications are a little bit slow in the responsiveness, and they need so much time to load, so we will have to wait until the application loads, until every step along the way is completed. They can also connect to system APIs. So the software robots are behaving exactly like humans, like we explained, and they are accessing the user interface of these applications, and they are doing the same type of work that our employees or our human workforce is doing. Another side of it is that these software robots can also integrate with systems through APIs. So they are working either ways. They are either working on the user interface of the applications, or they are working through APIs, so they can call an API for a specific application or a specific system and fetch data from it and send processed data back to it, or vice versa. They can also extract content from documents and forms. So if I have invoices, if I have purchase orders, if I have, that's in finance, if I have, let's say, an application, HR application, for example, printed application from internal stakeholders, from our employees, the robots can also either read data directly from these documents, or we can use different technologies that I'll also explain in a bit to fetch data from these documents. They can also open emails. They can respond to the emails, of course, on a trained process flow or a trained workflow that we always train these software robots to do. So they can also open emails, open the attachments in the emails, fetch data from these attachments, fetch data from the body of the emails. They are almost unlimited scenarios or unlimited possibilities when it comes to digital workforce. Of course, they can also make calculations. They can do data validations, so they can validate that, for example, if I have an application and people are applying with their passport copy, for the sake of an example, the robot can go and understand if this passport copy has a validity of 6 months or less. For example, in some of the immigration processes that we have been working in with some organizations, there's a mandatory requirement that the passport needs to be valid more than 6 months. This is something that the way that it was happening is that the employee would have to open the passport attachment, look at the expiry date and look at the current date and make a calculation either in his mind or somewhere else, and make sure that this passport is valid for more than 6 months. In order, this is just one of the criteria or one of the requirements for the process. So the process may have like something, some other requirements, let's say 20-30 requirements. So you can imagine the amount of time that it would take to process each application or each request if I have this type of validations in my process. So these are the only samples of what software robots can do. As I said, there are unlimited possibilities and unlimited scenarios, and this takes us to the next point, which is the question, where does RPA fit, or where does robotic process automation fit? Think of what you are seeing on the screen now. Think of it as a checklist. It's not mandatory that all these points must be there in order to automate a process, but the more points that I have out of this checklist, the more ROI or the more value or the more operational efficiency I will get out of automating this process. So the perfect process fit for an RPA is a process that is highly manual and repetitive. It has a very high volume of transactions. It's happening, let's say, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 times per day. And it's very time consuming for my employees or my human workforce. It has, the more it has a standard electronic input, the more it would be easier to automate, and it can be considered as a quick win. That's a process that can be automated quickly and can provide much high value to our business or to our organization. The more rule-based is it, the more also automatable it is. So if the process has like some many different scenarios or many different exceptions, it makes it a lower candidate for automation. However, with a bit of tweaking here and there and bit of re-engineering here and there, it can be 100% automatable. So this takes us to a very important point, is that if the process is not automatable, what would be the scenario? What do I just leave this process and ignore it and move on to other processes, or there's also possibility to improve this process and to improve the business by automating at least a part of this process? So in some of the processes, there would be a percentage of automation, let's say 40%, 50%. However, this process is costing me as an organization, let's say $100,000 for every year. $100,000 as a cost, it's translated to the amount of manpower or amount of man days or man hours that are consumed to operate this process or to complete this process every year or every month, and so on. So if I can automate 50% of this process, 50% of the steps or the flow of this process, I'm saving my organization for one process $50,000 per year. You can imagine the amount of possibilities how this can apply on different processes in one department and across the whole organization. So if I have like 20, 30 processes that are not 100% automatable, that are only 50% automatable, we are also going to assess these processes, and we would calculate the cost of these processes on our organization, and we would also understand the value, the dollar value that can be saved of automating these processes, and also many other considerations like the operational efficiency or of automating these processes, shorter SLAs, how I can respond to my customers, whether they are internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, how can I respond to them faster? If this process can be completed overnight, how much impact would that have on the happiness or the satisfaction of my customers, and so on and so forth. So basically, as I say, these are only a checklist. The more I have out of it, the more the process will be automatable and will provide more value. So as I said, rule-based, standard electronic input, high volume of transactions or applications, mature and stable, that the process is not constantly changing or continuously changing. If this is a process that is still have just started last month, for example, and it's not mature in the organization yet, I'm anticipating that this process might change over the coming months, then I would put it as a lower priority rather than another priority, another process that has a well-established maturity across the organization for a couple of years or number of years. So I would rather look at that process and postpone or hold the automation of the process that were just started until the next phase or the next stage of automation. So also one of the major factors that makes the process very good candidate for automation is that this process is interacting with different systems. So let's say the process is interacting with our operation system, which is interacting through Outlook, through emails, which is an email application. It's interacting with the ERP, it's interacting with the CRM. So it's interacting with 4 systems, and eventually, in order to complete this process, I need to apply an external portal, e-services portal for the government, for example, or another portal with one of my customers that I need to submit the invoice there, and so on and so forth. So the process is interacting with several systems, and in some cases, the integration is possible between these systems if they are internal applications. But in other cases, we have external applications where we have challenges in integrating with them, and then RPA steps in, or digital workforce steps in as the ideal solution in order to have like some kind of workaround for this integration, that it can interact with these external systems on its own and overnight without the need to count on our employees and our working hours in order to complete this process. So again, these are some checkpoints, the more that you have in the process, and this is part of our role, that we help you to understand if this process is a good candidate or not, what would be the ROI or the return of investment of automating this process, what would be the operational impact or the operational efficiency improvement if I have automated this process. And we gather all these data, and we provide it to you in a small business case that would make you understand the value of the automation of this process. What are the benefits of adopting RPA technology? There are unlimited benefits. There are so many good things that happen when I adopt the RPA technology in my organization, and so much value that I can get out of it. The most important value is cost optimization or cost reduction on the organization. So as I have explained earlier, we study the process, we study the cost of these processes on our organization, and we are saving operational hours from our manpower or our human workforce. And these operational hours can be translated, the first thing that they can be translated into is cost savings. So for a specific process, if I need 10 employees, and by automating this process, I can operate it only with 1 or 2 employees, I have saved the man hours of 8 employees of my organization, and hence I'm saving the cost of these 8 employees on the organization. Of course, cost reduction can be seen in different perspective. For example, if there are errors that are happening in the process, because we are humans and we are error prone sometimes, no matter how dedicated and focused we are on and committed to our work, still we are humans. At one point we will make one small mistake here or there, and this mistake can cost us money. If I am dealing with financial data, for example, and I have made a mistake in one of the reports or one of the purchase orders or the invoices, just a small number, you can imagine the impact that can be as a loss of money for our organization. So using software robots will guarantee that I'm making 0 errors on all my transactions. Even if we are processing millions of transactions per day, we will still have the 100% accuracy and the 0 error that will allow me to save the cost of any errors that might arise. So 2 things that I can be saving, either positively by saving manpower or man hours or man days from the organization across different departments, or I can be saving the cost of the lost funds that I can be losing in case that any errors are happening. The second point is the regulation compliance. So we are all looking to for a better governance for our processes, to standardize our processes, and also to comply with the regulations and the laws of the country. So using the digital workforce ensures that we are complying with these rules, because the process will be standard, it will be fixed across all the robotic digital workforce, and it will be happening, of course, with the shorter SLAs, shorter response times, and higher accuracy, and so on and so forth. As for return of investment, RPA has proven itself as one of the technologies with the very, very high return of investment and very, very quick return of investment as well, because on an average of 6 to 9 months, you're starting to recap or recover your investment that you have put into this automation. Why? Because within the first 6 to 9 months of having this process live and automated, I'm from day 1 or day 0, I'm saving man hours or man days. So these man days either can be translated to cost savings, or it can be translated to other things. But the main thing is that it's saving me hours, it's saving me days, it's saving me thousands or hundreds of man days that can be translated to cost saving. And this cost saving, when you are calculating it and comparing it to the investment you are making, you are achieving a very quick and high ROI in a very short time. Again, quality enhancement, I've already explained it. So the digital workforce has 0 error rate, while we are, as humans, it's natural that sometimes we make a mistake here or there, no matter how committed or or focused we are. Scalability is a very, very important point, because for a specific process, if I have 5 employees operating this process, and also the size of our business is continuously growing, and our operations are growing. So for a specific process, I have, let's say, 1,000 transactions per month or per day. And as soon as our business grows more and more, I would have like 2,000 transactions for this process per day, for example. So instead of having 5 employees to operate this process, I will need 10 employees to operate this process. And in order to have 10 employees or 5 extra employees, our organization have to go through a very hectic and long recruitment process, which has been very challenging recently. So it will be there will be job posting, there will be screening, there will be interviews. These interviews will qualify some candidates, and the selection will happen. The hiring process will take some time, and then I will have to train these employees on this process. So in short, in order to scale the operation of this process, I will need at least 2-3 months in order to add these 3 employees. While in the other scenario, where I have digital workers instead of human workers operating this process, they are already trained on this process. The automation core is already there. All I will need to do is to add one more robot by a click of a button. Of course, I will have to purchase the license for this robot, but I will just click one button, add one robot to this process, and in few minutes it's operating and it's scaled up, and I'm covering all the increase. So you can see the value between having to go through a process of 3 months or 2 months at least in order to add more workers or hands, like we say, to this process, and between the other scenario where in few minutes I would have added the same scalability or the same hands to the same process. Of course, people empowerment is a very important point, of course, because our employee morale, as soon as we adopt the RPA technology, always gets high. Why is that? Because we are taking the robotic tasks or the boring tasks out of them and giving them to the software robots or the digital workers. So it makes their job more or daily jobs more fun. So instead of coming in the morning, looking to the office and having to all the day to move data between Excel sheets, copy data from one application and pasting it in one application. And this is a scenario that we have actually seen over the past few years when we are working or partnering with organizations and implementing RPA there. The digital workers or the digital workforce can be perceived in the very beginning that, oh, this robots will just take my job, but instead of that, they are taking the robotic tasks or the boring manual tasks out of these employees and allowing them to focus on more cognitive stuff. So as a finance employee or as an accounting employee, I have studied all my life in order to do more financial analysis, make decisions, and so on, interact with people. And rather than this, I'm only copying data between documents. I'm extracting something from a website and posting it in a documents, preparing reports, and so on. And it's very, very time consuming and boring activities. So instead of that, I would take all these manual tasks and give it to software robots and allow this employee to study the output of this robot. So for example, a consolidation report, the robot would be logging to different systems, looking to different documents and Excel sheets, and gathering all this data and preparing the report. And finally, the finance employees would utilize or capitalize on his actual qualification or education by analyzing this document and making the decisions. Finally, the last point that I would like to mention here is the easy IT integration. Why? Because robotic process automation does not require any change on your current systems. So for some technologies, in order to adopt this technology, you will be asked to make a change on your internal applications, make a change on your process flow or something like this. But for RPA, it comes and replaces the human hands the same way exactly that's doing the process. So it's doing the process as it is. It's using the user interface or the APIs for the systems without any changes. So in order to invest in the RPA technology, you wouldn't be required to invest on changing your internal applications or your or any other type of investment that you would need to make in order to adopt the technology. The only investment that you will be making is the software robots themselves and the implementation of them, and you wouldn't have to change any other thing in your underlying system. So we always come and study your underlying systems and your infrastructure, and we give you recommendations based on this that robotic process automation would be needed here or there. And there's also discovery and consultancy exercise that I will come through later, but this is the whole point, that you don't need to change anything about your systems. This gives you a quick example of the difference in speed between the digital workforce and the human workforce. So on the left of the screen, you can see an employee entering data on or filling out fields on a system, and on the right of the screen, you can see the same fields, the same type of transactions, and a robot, a digital worker, is doing it. So in 2.5 minutes, the human were able to fill out one application only, while for in the same duration or in the same amount of time, the robot were able to process 11 entries within the same application. So you can see the difference in speed. You can see the difference of the time. If I have 11 entries, a human worker would have to do it, let's say, in 30 minutes, 35 minutes, while the same thing can be done by digital workers in 2.5 minutes. So this gives you an idea about the speed. Finally, we would like to explain to you also our perspective on the automation. So our perspective or our vision for automation is that we are removing the robotic tasks, removing the robots within our employees, and giving these tasks, as I explained, to digital workforce in order to process them. So we visualize this as a human body. Human body has organs and have some parts that are responsible for different daily activities that we are doing. So for hands, for the execution, we are using our hands to execute, and we are replacing that by software robots or RPA in order to automate these tasks. Our body has also central nervous system, which is responsible for the coordination between all the organs and activities within our body. And we are replicating the same things in the automation journey by replacing that by business process management, things like Nintex and other tools, how we are automating the workflows and the coordination between the tasks between the human workforce and the digital workforce, and how we are coordinating these tasks. Finally, we are using our mouth to interact with people, to interact with our humans, and we are replacing this communication part also with the chatbots, with natural language processing technologies like Watson, like Microsoft, like other technologies. So in order to communicate the inputs and the outputs of a specific process, we are also complementing it by a chatbot that would be responsible for the communication between different stakeholders, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. And you have all seen it in the past few years, how everyone is adopting chatbot in order to make things easier and more, in order to make their services easier for even for the internal stakeholders like our employees, or external stakeholders like our customers. So we all now prefer texting over over filling a very long form or a very long application. I would rather open my WhatsApp and access the business account of the organization and just chat with the chatbot, which is very intelligent and interprets my intentions and allows me to process my service or my request in a much fast manner. Finally, there's also the perception part, which we are using our eyes. So in some of the processes, and I've give one example that I've used earlier, is the invoice processing or the accounts payable. Sometimes we are receiving the invoices as digital documents that allows us to extract data from these documents directly, copy and paste the invoice number, the amount, the item lines, and so on. And in other cases, we are receiving these invoices as scanned documents or scanned copies. So in this case, I would not be able to copy data from them. I will have to look at the on the scanned documents and memorize the numbers and write them down, and making sure that I'm not making any mistakes and so on. But in such case, we are using a technology which is OCR, which enables us to smartly capture the data of scanned documents, capture the invoice number. So it's replacing the eyes of the human basically. So it's reading the data from the documents, reading the data from scanned documents, and automatically putting them for the software robot in order to start working with them. And on top of all of these technologies or all of these tools, I need as an executive management or top management in any organization, and even as employees as well, we need to look from a bird's eye view, look at all these transactions, look at all these insights, look at all these analytics in order to understand what's going on in a specific process, for example, and also to have all the insights and the data in order to allow us as management or as employees to make informative decisions. So for this, we are using analytics tool like Microsoft Power BI, Tableau, and other tools in order to create dashboards and insights from the outputs of all these processes and all these automations within our digital transformation, in order to provide very comprehensive dashboards that would allow us to make informative decisions. So as I explained, OCR, this is the part where the technology is able to read data from scanned documents. So it's capturing the business data and delivers data into the business process and giving it to the software robot in order to be able to process it. You can see an example of that here, that these are invoices, for example. So you can see here invoices that I need to extract data from. I need to extract the invoice amount, invoice number, the line items, the BO number, and any other data that I need in order to post on the ERP, for example. And I am using OCR to capture this data from these documents. And in order to use this data on my process or on my transaction, either to post it on an ERP or post it on any other application, post it in a report, for example. I'm gathering data for a report, so I would be able to do these kind of things by capturing the information from these documents. You can see how the data is fetched from the invoice. So I have the total amount, I have the VAT amount, I have the subtotal, the currency, I have everything, all the data that I need in order to process my transaction. Another technology that we are using in complementing automation by RPA is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, it has so many cognitive services like photo recognition, face recognition, speech recognition, and many other cognitive services. One example of it is face recognition. For example, in one of the projects that we are working on, the employee had to compare the personal photo submitted in the application with the photo of the passport within the same application, and to make sure that this is the same person that that's applying, and making sure that it's the correct application. So the robots are using cognitive services in order, and artificial intelligence, in order to detect is it the same person or not, and also detecting some other things like headwear. For example, in UAE and some government authorities, only personal photos without any headwear, without any accessories other than the traditional headwear in Emirates. Everything else is rejected. So it also helps to detect these kind of things and detect is it the same person or not, and in some cases also detect like the pose of the photo. For example, if is it a passport photo or not? Is it like a straight photo from the face or from the side of the face, and so on. So we are also using artificial intelligence and cognitive services in order to do these type of things. We are using chatbots, as I've explained earlier, that it would interpret the intent and the tone of the applicant, and it would respond to him to fill to proceed with his service, and it would take all the data from the applicant, for example, either through WhatsApp or through our web portal or mobile application or different social media channels. It would take all the applicant data required to this process and hand it over to the software robot in order to process this specific transaction. An example of using chatbots with RPA is an example here that we have done with PwC. The case here is that the reporting was let me just pause it for a second to explain it. So the example here is that the specific employee had to go in order to fetch the status of the projects. They had to, of course, how PwC are operating in different projects. So in order to understand the status of the reports, the executive manager used to send an email to a specific employee asking him what's the status of project X or project A, and then the employee had to go to the project management system that they are using and find out the status of this project and capture it and send it back by email to the executive manager. So the executive manager, if he wants to understand the status of 4 or 5, 6 projects, he would ask the employee, and he would have to log into 6 different projects and understand the status and understand also the compliance rate that the executive management would be asking for, and gathering all this data either from the project management system or from risk management system would consume lots of time. So in order to prepare a specific report that the executive manager would request, this preparation would take at least 3 to 5 hours, or sometimes in some cases 3 days, because we are also have many other daily activities, so we are not fully focused on this very specific report only. But to summarize it, it would take on average 3 to 5 hours in order to prepare this, because the employee had to log into risk management system for different projects and log into Microsoft Project Server for different projects and gather this data in order to be able to let me just play the video here. Yeah. So you can see we have replaced that with a chatbot and digital worker. So the chatbot would be available for the executive manager on spot. He is asking him, how can I help you, or what can I do for you? He's asking him what are the projects that are executing right now. The chatbot, with the help of a digital worker or a robot in the background, is accessing the project management server and capturing the data and bringing it on a spot for the person who's dealing with the chatbot. He's asking him what's the status of project 2, for example. He's using the same methodology, logging to the systems and getting this data and answering right away to the stakeholder or the person who's using the chatbot. Again, he's asking him about the compliance rate. He's asking about overall compliance for all the projects, and also this needed the employee to log into their risk management system to understand the compliance rate and answer back to the manager. Finally, he is asking him to send him a compliance report for all the projects that are being executed in the company. And right now, what the robot is doing is that he's logging it into different systems, Microsoft Project Server for different systems. He's logging into Risk Hammer, which is the Plan Hammer, which is the risk management system that they are using. You will see it logging it to it now, logging into it now. I'll just skip a little bit. Yeah, so it's accessing Plan Hammer for a specific project and then capturing some data on the compliance for this project, and again logging out and logging it to another project on Microsoft Project Server in order to capture this data. It's logging into Plan Hammer again for a different project, and so on and so forth until it gathers all the data. I'll just skip through this part a little bit. So you can see how many times it's accessing different systems for different projects. And finally, after capturing all this data, it opens a PowerPoint template. And it starts, this is the software robot working, by the way. So the software robot is opening PowerPoint with the fixed template, using all the data that it has captured and pasting it within this template. So it's basically preparing the requested report on PowerPoint, and finally it would share it by email to the executive manager who have asked it to it. So the point here is that for the preparation of this report, it used to consume 5 hours of the project manager or the BMO office employees, and right now it's being done by the chatbot and the RPA within few minutes, as you have just seen. Also, there's the usage of business process management. As I've explained, is the coordination between different applications, between the human workforce and the digital workforce, and even with the external systems. So across the process flow from start to end, across the workflow of this process, there's coordination happening between the human workforce and the digital workforce and all the involved systems. So are there any questions so far? Okay, so I guess I will leave the questions to the very end of the webinar, but right now we will present you some of the most common of the frequent use cases across different organizations. So the most common use cases are in RPA are usually within finance, human resources, IT, and operations. Of course, depends on the vertical or the type of the organization itself. So for human resources, for example, time and attendance management is a potential process, benefits administration, payroll administration, expense management, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. So for the finance, there are so many areas where automation would be applicable: the accounts payable, the accounts receivable, the order to cash, the vendor management, the financial governance, the bank reconciliations, reconciliating the transactions on our systems against the bank statements that we are receiving. The credit card reconciliation is pretty much the same thing. The collections and reminders for the accounts receivable. So instead of having our employees following up on our customers for the payments, the robots would be automatically sending reminders and notifications for this employees in order to collect the cash, and they stop as soon as the money hits the account. Just 1 second, sorry. Apologies. So for the operations and the supply chain, there are also several several use cases that can be found there. You can see the verification of the applications of separate entities of the government entities, the validation of the documents, either identity checks, validation of Emirates IDs, validation of passports, validation of any other ID cards, and the expiry dates, as I've explained. So software robots can be used to do this kind of validations or verifications. Another example is the IT help desk basic and common tickets. Tickets. The robots can go on and immediately, for example, the installation of an application or fixing a sample or a symbol a ticket that's submitted by one of our employees, for example, that they need to install Google Chrome on their machine, but they don't have the privilege to do so. So once they submit the ticket on the help desk, the robot would go immediately and pick up this ticket and understand that it's a ticket for installing a specific application, let's say Google Chrome, as we said. So it goes and logs into the employee machine and installs it because it would have the right privileges to do so. So you can see how much time this can save, like by fixing all the simple and medium tickets and taking the headache of them from our help desk employees and allowing them to focus more on the major tickets or the challenging ones. Also, there's email processing distribution, employee onboarding and offboarding. You can I'll show you in a bit one example for that, how when an employee is joining our organization, we need to create accounts for him across different systems, and how we can use digital workforce to do that. And also when an employee is leaving the organization, how to offboard him by closing his accounts and calculating, for example, his end of service and so on. These all things are time consuming and very manual activities that are handed over to software robots in order to complete and do them. You can see some use cases and common use cases in finance here. We have already mentioned some. So there are financial consolidations, accounts payable automations, account receivable automation, intercompany transfers and reconciliations between different sister companies within the same holding company, for example, the daily generation of the reports, the automatic production of alert reports on specific matters, the journal entries, and so on and so forth, and the month closing and heavy closing, credit card accounting, licenses and audits and everything. There are unlimited possibilities within finance for RPA, and these are only some of these possibilities. You can see one quick example of that here is the bank reconciliation. So in this scenario, the robot is opening the system transactions for a specific organization and opening the bank statement transactions. First, it will do the auto reconciliation. It's an available feature in Oracle Fusion, but then there are many transactions left that are not 100% matched with the system transactions, because they are the reference, for example, is written in a different way between the bank statement transactions and the system's transactions. So the software robot is using fuzzy logic. It's downloading the the bank statement transactions, and it's also downloading the system transactions, as you will see right now. This software robot working. It's blurred, of course, because a little bit sensitive data for that organization, but as you can see, the robot is pasting data within the two Excel sheets and using fuzzy logic in order to match and reconcile these transactions between the system transactions and bank transactions, and finally going back to the system and reconciling them. And if there are any necessary journal entries, the robot would be doing it on also on Oracle. You can see the robot is working right now, doing some transactions as well. So you get the idea that instead of like having one employee reading all these transactions one by one, looking at the references, trying to find the differences and matching these transactions, whether they are matching or not in the reference, in the amount, in the date, and everything, we would have software robots doing the same thing, which could save us lots of man hours, obviously. Another area where RPA is pretty much applicable is the human resources, the employee onboarding, as I have explained, like creating or applying for visas for these employees, instead of having our PRO and other employees applying on the immigration and different government portals, Emirates ID Authority, and other government entities. We would have software robots, and these are processes that we have actually done in many of our projects. So the employee onboarding, the creation of the employee credentials on different systems, adding him to the HRMS, and adding him to all the other systems. Also, the billable hours processing in case there are deductions and so on. So this process is a little bit shared process between HR and finance, where they have to calculate all the leaves, they have to calculate all the deductions and send it to the finance in order to process these deductions in the salaries of the employees. And also updating the employee information by, let's say they have new passport, new Emirates ID, instead of just going through a hectic process of adding the new details of this process. For example, he's getting married and he's adding his family to his visa and so on. All these manual things can be automated by RPA. This is an example of an employee onboarding. This is the flow of the process, how the HR employee usually used to consolidate the newcomers' data, create emails and password, an email and password for each new employee, and he registers them to the company's systems. You will see the robot is doing it now. The robot will start execution. So you can see an Excel sheet of those employees. And the robot is basically creating the names of their emails based on a specific, of course, a standard naming convention that the organization is using. And once he creates these things, he will make sure, of course, that he will validate that these names are not previously used. For example, one employee's name is Ahmed Muhammad. So he will make sure that if Ahmed Muhammad is already existing, the robot will be intelligent enough to put another name, for example, add a number or use a different abbreviation of the name in order to make sure that it's not repeating. Now you are seeing the robot is opening the HRMS, and it's filling out all the data of that employee, the name, the birth date, the phone number, and all the other employees. And also you can see that the robot found that there's a duplication of the name, and then it will create another name according to the naming convention or a predefined rule. So you can see how fast the robot is filling out the data and creating accounts and profiles for the employees on the HRMS. Now there are many other use cases in banking, in the know your customer and anti-money laundering that are related to external sources, and core banking systems and the identification documents and the CRM and the risk management system, but we will not go through all of them. But also RPA is a very widespread used technology across banking organizations. I think most of the banks in the country right now are have adopted it or in the process of adopting it. So this is why, for example, you can see for some banks that you can create an account within 30 minutes. Why you can create an account within 30 minutes? Because there's a software robots in the background who are responsible on taking all this data, all your data, validating them very quickly and creating for you all the necessary accounts on the core banking system, and replies with you within a few minutes that your congratulations, your bank account have been opened. So there are also many other processes within the banking sector, but I will not go through all of them. There's tax reporting, report generation, accounts reconciliation, duplicating and moving data, and so on. Also, we have few healthcare use cases where we have automated, for example, for healthcare organizations, healthcare providers, and insurance providers, some of their processes. So you can see the interaction between the HIS, the Health Information System, and the front office team and the insurance team. Instead of counting on our human workforce in order to process things like the patient's check-in, the insurance eligibility checks, and the pre-approvals, the appointment scheduling, and so on and so forth. We are handing that over to software robots and chatbots in order to interact with our patients and in order to be able to do these kind of things. Finally, also not only the HIS, there are also processes related to ERP, HRMS, and other systems. So you can see here a summary of some of the sample of the processes that we have automated within the healthcare sector. So for healthcare providers and insurance providers, and also insurance brokers as well. These are some of the processes that can be automated in the healthcare sector. So you can see in the finance, there's bank reconciliation, credit reconciliation, we have already mentioned. There's also the financial consolidation and reporting, the pharmacy consumption within a specific healthcare provider or within a specific hospital, and also the insurance part or the revenue cycle management department, where the employees used to check the eligibility for every single appointment of our patients. Now the software robots are doing it, they are logging into the appointment system on the HIS of that hospital and taking their Emirates ID and taking their insurance policies and logs into the insurance portals to check their eligibility. Of course, there are many areas like the claims submission and claims resubmission, and so on and so forth. I will also skip a little bit within from this example. So that concludes it for the day. I am sorry if I have taken a little bit more than the allocated time, but I hope this presentation was fruitful and beneficial for you guys. And I'm happy to receive any questions if there are any. All right, I will hand it over to you, Ahmed. The floor is yours now.
Thank you, Rami. Thank you. I think we have just one question raised by Sergio, who asked us to contact him. I think he has an interest in what we presented today. So that will be taken care by Gada. There is no questions raised by the team or by the attendees. Thanks a lot, everybody, for attending our webinar. We really appreciate your time investment. We are looking forward, and we'll contact you shortly, all of you, to discuss what would be the potential of digital workers to be in your organization and how we can help you in that regards. Thanks a lot, Rami. Thank you, Gada. Thank you, everybody, for attending the call. Wish you a great day ahead. And thanks a lot, Rami, for the fruitful session that we did it today. Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, dear. Bye bye.